And then Sunoco will stop there. So I'm gonna send it out, I'll send it out again.
So when the people get out of their cars and they're walking, they see the sign. So they're reading it as they're walking in the door. What do you think?
Yeah, I know. Oh, you guys can. I guess we, we'll just have a full
They didn't think you could do it.
Okay, good.
I was just make it short, just let them know. Just remind them. That's all. That was just gonna do a reason to do it back. Yeah, but you say it's not gonna be. I don't know about that. No, you're too speak the hell out. And all that.
Four is four. I'd like to call to order the Eastpointe City Planning Commission meeting for, oh my lord, February 1st, 2024 at 7:02. Secretary, please call the roll.
Mr. Roll.
Present.
Ms. Moody. Present. Ms. Ulinski here. Commissioner DeHunt.
Here. Commissioners Lubeck and Naylor are excused, one for an out-of-town conference and the other one for not feeling well.
And Mr. Stokes.
Mr. Stokes has not been sworn in as of yet, and he would be unable to attend this meeting. So I don't know how we would do that since he wasn't sworn in. Guess we'll just leave it empty. Can I get a recommendation or a motion to approve the minutes of the agenda? Oh, with the one caveat that we need to remove item 6, new business, welcoming Commissioner Stokes.
Make that motion.
We have motion. Do we have support?
Support.
We have motion and support. Secretary, please call the roll.
Mr. Roll.
Yes.
Ms. Moody.
Yes.
Ms. Ulinski, yes. Chairman DeHunt.
Yes. I'd like to open the first hearing of the public. You have 3 minutes to speak on anything you would like to speak on. As we have no public hearing this evening, it's a clean forum. Mr. Myron.
Hi, Gary Myron, Eastpointe resident. Commissioners, I just want to let the public know, who's ever listening, just a reminder of the public hearing, not the hearing of the public at the next council meeting on February 6th at 7 o'clock at the City Hall about the 9-mile traffic reduction from 5 lanes to 3. And please show up for your concern and let your voice be heard. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, Planning Commission. Mary Hall Rayford. Did you want me to sign in?
Please.
Okay.
Mr. Myron, did you sign in?
I'll leave.
I should not have to, Mr. Myron. You know the routine.
Okay. I too am here to remind the public about the public hearing on February 6th for the reduced lane proposal on 9 Mile. I would ask everyone to think very carefully about the use of 9 Mile and those who use it who don't live in the city. I understand there are people who travel from Warren through Eastpointe on 9 Mile to get to the freeway, as well as those in Grosse Pointe. I've looked at the situation from left to right, up and down, and I cannot find a rationale to reduce the lanes on 9 Mile. Personal preference by some to make it appear to us to look like other cities just doesn't compute with me. I've also heard from people who live in other cities who says it can be a nightmare if the lanes are reduced. Quite frankly, since the police and fire department are opposed, I stand on the side of right, because in this instance, I believe they are right. I would not want anyone to be delayed in responding to an emergency at my house, and I'm sure no one else would. Because I use 9 Mile every day, and I would resent totally having to change a route simply because of someone's egotistical need to see it changed. So I would ask everyone to please come out on Tuesday, February 6th at 7 o'clock and voice your concerns. I have flyers tonight if anyone would like to share one with your neighbor, and I will be out tomorrow and Saturday rallying for the city. Thank you.
Somebody remembered Mr. Myron.
Don't have to tell me twice. Karen Morage, an Eastpointe resident. In regards to 9 Mile, before I bought my house out here approximately 17 years ago, I lived in communities, Royal Oak and Ferndale, and it's very progressive. The downtown districts were definitely walkable, and in all fairness, being in Eastpointe is like the antithesis of Ferndale and Royal Oak. We just do not have a nightlife to attract those who go to Ferndale, Royal Oak, Birmingham, Troy, Ann Arbor, for entertainment. I can also tell you that Ferndale, with their 9 Mile, that's 2 lanes. Royal Oak, Main Street, that's 2 lanes. And when it jams up, it jams up. And a few nights ago on the news, they were talking about problems on Woodward in Ferndale with the construction and that. So it seems like even Ferndale's starting to hit the news with I don't understand this road diet terminology. It's like, just call it what it is. It's a lane reduction. In regards to our 9 Mile, I hate driving 9 Mile because they drive like idiots. It's, literally, you have to have your head on a swivel driving up and down 9 Mile. It's like the wild, wild west. Anything goes, and that's with 5 lanes. I also saw what happened when we had all that construction and how jammed up 9 Mile was, because the lanes were reduced. If this goes forward, it also begs the question, is the speed limit going to be reduced? Because when you look at other communities where they only have 2 or 3 lanes tops, the speed limit is 25. And, on 9 Mile, the speed limit is 35. But who really obeys the speed limit? I mean, there have been people who fly past me like they're on fire. They are okay, the microphone went out, so good thing I speak loudly. And they're far exceeding the 35-mile-an-hour speed limit. I am concerned about the police and fire being able to respond when you have lane reductions.
30 seconds.
Thank you. And also, there was mention at a previous council meeting in doing the lane reduction that there would be, or there's a good possibility, there would be side streets cut off from 9 Mile. That's absolutely disastrous. Lives would be lost because every second counts. So I asked the city to reconsider this because we really have to put safety first. Thank you.
Thank you. Does anyone else wish to be heard? Anyone else wish to be heard? My Sheldon Cooper invitation is over. I will close the first hearing of the public, and we shall move on to approval of the minutes.
I make a motion to approve the minutes of January 11, 2024.
I would like to make one change, if we may, and to make sure that we have Ms. Naylor as excused, given her family calamity. I don't know if we had him as absent, but I just wanted in the record that she had a family emergency. That would be the only change that I would like to see.
Make that motion with that change.
Support.
We have motion and support. Secretary, please call the roll.
Ms. Moody?
Yes.
Ms. Julinski, yes. Mr. Broll?
Yes.
Chairman DeHunt?
Yes. We have no public hearing. We have no new business. Moving on to unfinished business. Master plan update. Ms. Brashevsky.
Hello, thanks for having me. Today, first topic is discussing City Council's goals. So we have that in front of us, and my computer fell asleep, but I can also put it on the screen. Okay, so we're understanding what the City Council's goals are. I think they just endorsed these at a recent meeting. And it's important to understand what the City Council's goals are, even though we know we're looking to have a joint session as we update the master plan. But this can help us fuel some ideas of what we might want to see if we're missing any of these elements within our workshop today. And for those of us who are not familiar with the master plan, a master plan is a land use and infrastructure plan. So when we talk about goals, we want to talk about land use categories and infrastructure categories. And this plan sets forth local goals, objectives, policies, projects for community growth and redevelopment. So we're looking for how the community will grow. That's the land use. And the redevelopment is also a form of land use, but also infrastructure. And these plans last over 20 to 30 years. So we're really looking for those long-range goals, but can also break them down into specific projects. Another key component of a master plan is connecting the environment and social settings with buildings. So that is why the master plan focuses on infrastructure, the connections between buildings, land use, and environment, and then the land use itself. So Chair, I'm not sure how you'd like to go through this, but the city council goals are on the screen and in front of you.
So if I am to understand this, there were only 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 goals. So we had the public safety, the infrastructure, city land and facilities, city involvement, public outreach. Am I understanding this correctly?
Yes, that's my understanding.
Okay.
Mara, are these in any priority order or period of time?
I do not believe that they are, but I do not know that information.
So then under each goal, we have the various projects that need to be discussed.
Can you repeat that, Chair? Sorry.
Under the various goals, we have the various projects that,
Chair, so this is a memo, a worksheet, maybe something from the city council meeting. I did not create it to prepare
Okay.
for the workshop today. And if we have any questions in the room, we can always refer to our city council member liaison.
okay. But these were the only things that were identified by city council as being the most important?
These were actually provided to us through administration.
Oh, okay. All right. Moving on.
Okay.
Dive in.
To item B?
Yep.
Okay. So now we're going to review and prioritize the 2019 master plan goals and objectives and identify any desired changes. So first, I think it's helpful for us to see a list of all of the goals on one sheet that the 2019 master plan contains. And the 4 categories are neighborhoods, community building, business and industrial, and transportation. So today, one exercise within this item B is to rank in order of priority these 4 goals.
Okay. So as this is a workshop, I'm going to lean on you to guide us a little bit more as to how you'd like to see this play out. How about that?
Sure. Well, we could start by reading the goals, familiarizing ourselves with the language. Does anyone want to
You can
read a
read.
goal?
You can read.
For council, planning commissioners,
So
4 goals?
before we move on, can I ask you this question? So this exercise here, is this going to be a collaborative decision on ranking these, the goals, or individual ranking of the goals?
Thank you, Commissioner. It would be both. Both areas of conversation are relevant today. So if you have your own opinion, you could voice it, and then the Planning Commission could decide.
All right.
Another component of this activity, because later we will go into the objectives or projects under each goal, and then we'll prioritize those. But if there's a goal missing that we want, and we want to fill that gap, now would be an appropriate time to bring that category forward.
Didn't they create a master plan for the Parks and Recreation?
Chair, yes.
Wouldn't this be an opportunity to fold that plan into our plan,
Chair,
please?
the Recreation Authority of Roseville and Eastpointe, in coordination with both cities, are currently updating our existing 5-year Parks and Recreation Master Plan.
It just seems to me that, you know, we talked about development the last time around when we did the master plan, but we really didn't talk much about folding in parks and community amenities like that. And it seems to me, unless I'm mistaken, wouldn't that be a critical element to a master plan?
Chair?
Please.
If you look at the first page, and I'm not necessarily saying we need to go in this direction, but plans can be, you can develop a master plan to include a lot of different elements. or it can just be focused on, like we have here, these 4 different goals. So while we certainly could include a section for Parks and Recreation, just know that some of that work is already being done right now through RARE and cities and a steering committee that's been put together. We had our first meeting last Thursday. It went really well. And we'll have multiple opportunities for community engagement, primarily throughout the summertime, the schedule and locations for that. And they will likely, come and share with you some of the initial things that they developed through the existing plans, the engagement, and what the final product will look like. So I do believe there will be plenty of opportunities for you all to engage in that process. I'm not saying we can't include it in this. If you want to do that, that's totally fine. Just know that it is already being done by another group, and you're more than welcome to join in on that process at any time.
This would be an interesting thing to bring to a joint meeting as well, to fold in and get council feedback.
Yeah, joint council meeting, you could have a joint meeting with the Parks Commission, you could have a joint meeting with the RARE Board. There are a lot of different ways that if you wanted it, so there's a lot of different directions you could go with that if you did want to focus on Parks and Recreation as part of this update.
Okay.
Okay, so do you want me to read all of the goals?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I don't mind. Let's see. So the first goal is for neighborhoods. Strengthen the quality of residential character of the community by improving current neighborhoods, assuming that growth meets the needs of the community, and providing convenient access to supporting activities. Neighborhoods. Next, community building. Continue to improve city policies and planning processes with input from appropriate stakeholders. Okay, so I already see an alignment with community building regarding with the city council's goals. Category citizen involvement, public outreach. 3, business and industrial. Create an environment that is conducive to development, redevelopment, and the growth of businesses. Support existing business districts with appropriately sited and attractively designed retail, service, and entertainment establishments.
Is the word industrial appropriate? Because
That's
we
what
really
we're
don't have
talking about.
industrial,
Chair?
please.
While we do have a limited number, there are a few industrial properties, as you likely know, in the city. So I think that's probably why it was included. I also would hesitate to remove that just because there is a movement around the country, I would say, of like what you would consider small-scale manufacturing. So think of like food-based businesses, folks making candles, things that you would think of like that would evolve out of like a cottage industry. So while we may not be trying to attract the next auto parts supplier or things like that, I think there are other activities if we wanted to leave it in there, but I also understand your argument if you wanted to remove it.
So you're using the term industrial as an overarching,
What if we added a light in front of it to say that we're
Yes.
not trying to have heavy manufacturing, but we're not opposed to having, like I said, that kind of like that small scale.
makes
Or you
more
could just
sense.
replace it all and call it commercial. That's all encompassing.
Yeah.
That would
That's-
Yeah.
That's good too.
Okay. Great comments. Thank you. Looking forward to hearing more. Transportation, last goal. Maintain a safe, quality street network which operates at an accessible level of service, is aesthetically pleasing, is considerate of pedestrians and bicyclists, and ensures traffic on residential streets to harmonize with the neighborhood. Develop a comprehensive, non-motorized system of sidewalks, bike lanes, and pathways throughout the community, which is safe, well-maintained, allows access to the various landmarks within the community, and provides a recreational and social amenity for residents. Transportation.
Harmonize is an interesting word. Maybe in harmony with the neighborhood. Unless you're gonna go up and down the street singing. So then my question is, then if we go back to neighborhoods and we have the various bullet points underneath each one where you've got our score, how do you want us to score this? A, B, C?
So right now, Chair, we're just working on prioritizing these goals. So we want to rank these goals number 1 through 4 in order priority 1 to 4.
I'm talking about the items under goal number 1, you have the various objectives of the master plan where it says scoring.
Yes.
So how are you wanting us to score those?
We're not on that point yet.
Okay. But my question though is, when we get there, are you wanting them in level of importance or how are you wanting them scored?
Oh, yes, for sure. Thanks. Level of importance.
Okay, thank you.
So can I ask you another question? So when maybe I should say when I compare the goals here, say under neighborhoods, compared to what was on the 2019 master plan, and there are some that have been added or some removed, do you discuss those or not? Or are we just concentrating on what's in front of us tonight as far as the neighborhoods for goals and objectives?
Thank you.
Do
Chair.
that make,
Yes, so Commissioner Moody, if I'm understanding, you're asking if we've removed any goals from the 2019 plan, and all of the goals are in front of you today from the 2019 plan, no goals have been removed. Right now, we're just focusing on what's the priority. Is it neighborhoods, is it transportation, et cetera, just to start us off with this conversation. And then if we say neighborhoods is the priority, then we'll dive into that conversation first. And we'll talk about the different projects or objectives that are most important for neighborhoods. This is just an example. We'll rank them 1 through 7, as Chair pointed out. And then we'll go into understanding if there's any gaps or other projects that we'd like to see for neighborhoods that are missing from the plan today.
absolutely. Thank you.
Thank you.
You sort of asked the same question on the schedule we're gonna go through next with the details. You also asked us to rank these 4 objectives in there as well. So this is like the opening exercise to get to that, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, thanks. So what do we prioritize here? Or it can change, it fluctuates, but neighborhoods, community building, business and industrial, or commercial?
It's kind of tough because it's
Trans-
like the chicken before the egg.
That's
You
fair.
you have to have community building, to draw people in. You have to have the neighborhoods, definitely, also to draw people in. It's a great question, Mara, because, right, like what is most important for residents? What are they looking at? When you're looking to move to a city, what are you looking for? If you're a family, you're looking for a school district. That always, don't wince. That's going to be a different topic, I know, but, I mean, these are the things you look at, right? Family friendly, what parks, what activities, what do the neighborhoods look like? How safe are they?
Mm-hmm.
So putting one before another, if you then read the objectives under each goal, while you want some of those objectives under maybe community building, but you want also some of the objectives under neighborhoods. Not sure if anybody feels the same or what your thoughts are. Safety being first. So how do we, being the police department always seems to be so busy, how do we make the neighborhood safe? How do we stop the speeders through the neighborhoods? Because who wants to move on a street that's a racetrack? They just have, it's difficult for me to honestly figure it out being that each category has different important features.
It's like trying to
That
pick
go
your
hand in
favorite
hand.
child.
Yeah,
And which feature is more important?
Well, I can tell you, when I thought about this, the first objective of quality housing, to me, is the foundation, because you can build all the nice parks, you can keep road controls, you can do everything you want, but if the housing quality is low, it doesn't matter. So to me, the housing stock, which is item one, how do we enhance that? How do we maintain it? How do we build on that? Is easily number one in my book. When I was thinking about it, I was thinking business was probably number two, which is goal number three. Or I'm sorry, maybe it's four. What is it? The order?
Three.
Three. But I mean, one was definitely clearing away the highest one. I think goals 2 and 4, which speak more to like how do you enhance it, are nice to have. But housing is certainly the backbone of everything you would build around.
and I agree with that.
I agree with that.
I was actually thinking about business being the last one. I know that would not make a lot of business owners happy, but to me, we are a family town. That is our motto. And if you're going to exemplify your motto, you need to focus on families, neighborhoods, community, and transportation would be the key items there. And to me, sorry, Ian, but being business and industry would be on the back burner, because I think you have to have all those three critical elements before you can have a successful business district.
Chair, with respect, where will people shop and buy the goods and services that they need to live the lives in the beautiful place that we're building if we don't have businesses? Where will people work if we
Where are
don't?
they going now? Just because you build it does not necessarily mean they're going to come. Yes, well,
It's not, but I don't know. I
you know,
would-
look at our grocery shopping situation right now. We have one market, and everybody that two, and everybody that I know does not shop in any of those markets. Now they'll go to Mario's, or they'll go to some of the more specialty stores, but they don't even do their marketing in Eastpointe.
Right. And don't you think that's an issue that we should try and strive for and strive to remedy in the
Yes,
future?
I do, but, to Sheila's point, it's the chicken and the egg situation, though. If you have great retail and great shopping opportunities, but you have bombed out, desolate, poor housing stock wrapped around it, you can't, not one of these items should, to do this appropriately, they all have to be on a straight line. One can't be 1, 2, 3, and 4. They are all equally important.
Chair, I think that's where the importance of having this conversation of each of our individual perspectives come in, because each of us are going to look at this a different way. So I don't know that we have to agree at the end of this conversation necessarily, but I think it's good that we're having it, and yeah, but a lot of good points have been made so far, so.
Well, again, and think of like when I was moving here, it was schools, it was what's convenient, it was what was close to work, it was how safe it is, it was the housing. So it's like one from each category, or a couple from each category is what I looked for when I was coming here.
When my family moved here, it was about where they could raise their turkeys.
Well, you were here way before me.
So how about we just dive into each one of these and not assume that any one is any more important than the other, and then we grade? Do you guys feel okay with that?
No, are you okay with that? Because I don't want to keep pushing this exercise further back. Like if you would rather we do 1 through 4 first, we need to figure it out.
Thank you. Chair, I completely agree. This is just a starting point for us to familiarize ourselves with the goals. We don't have to have a consensus. It's good that we've aired our first initial thoughts, and so we can jump into the next step, which is categorize by importance the objectives. And when we do this, let's just be mindful of any missing bucket that is for a goal, but also like categories for objectives too, like any gaps that we need to fill within the city. So neighborhoods, let's take it away. Okay,
Can you make the font bigger?
yes.
Just because some of us, like me, don't have my glasses. There we go.
You could take your vanity home and go get them.
Or go out to the car.
Oh, there you go.
Here, that's better. Okay, so you have the worksheets in front of you, so you can rank them on your sheets of paper. Do you want me to read the objectives?
Yes.
Okay. So one is encourage the development of housing, including apartments, townhomes, senior housing, and mixed-use housing in areas where infrastructure is available or would be provided. So ranking these 1 through 7, seeing if there's anything missing. Maintain and upgrade current housing stock throughout the city. It's 2. 3, encourage the development of cohesive neighborhoods by facilitating rehabilitation of existing homes, encouraging the construction of new homes, and promoting the development of public improvements and open space. So you get more public improvements, open space here. This is more neighborhood focused. 4, ensure new residential projects preserve the contextual character of the neighborhood. So we want to preserve the character. 5, apply the range of incentives available to assist in development of additional housing, including public improvements, land assembly, financial assistance. So it's more of financial assistance, focusing on incentives for new housing. 6, encourage the development of senior housing options for those over 55 in order to meet the growing needs of the senior population to allow residents to age in place. And 7, enforce property maintenance through code enforcement and the beautification committee.
Mr. Chair, if I may,
Yes. Are you there?
I am here.
I know, I didn't know that either.
We get you a telephone. Oh, they don't have telephone books anymore.
I think some of the constraints in Eastpointe is that we are very built out. And so I think that, it is difficult to find new areas for new builds and things like that. A couple of notes that I would have, property maintenance really is going to be through code enforcement, although there is a upcoming seminar on some new ideas for property, through code, for code enforcement that focuses on compliance as opposed to just ticketing. And the incentives, again, something that could be a recommendation, but that's going to be for city council to decide as to what type of financial assistance or incentives they would want to allow or implement. And in terms of maintaining housing stock, one of the biggest needs, other than affordable housing, one of the biggest needs is funding for repair for homeowners. I wanted to let you guys know that HUD is considering using CDBG funding for rehabilitation, for repair or needs for property owners in addition to just rehabilitation for new homeowners, things like that. But there's a huge need because there is very little funding available for repair.
So, Mike, the average person that's looking to move here is not, I would never have thought about trying to get HUD funding or anything like that, I guess it depends on your financial circumstances, but how would the average person even know that even it would be available or anything like that? Is your real estate agent going to do that if you're looking to buy a home here? Most real estate agents are just looking to get your signature on the document, make their commission, and move on.
Chair, As Ms. Homan mentioned, there are a number of programs out there, so I do think, we could research them and try and get the word out a little bit more than we have been in the past. Most banks have a program now. Mishta has a down payment assistance program, so I think that's definitely something that, it would take a little bit of time just to get everything together, but I don't think it's out of the realm of possibility for administration to kind of try to put together a how-to guide or programs list for residents, maybe for renters that are looking to buy a home or for folks from outside the city that are interested in buying a home in Eastpointe.
So how would you disseminate that information to these people?
Ideally through multiple different communication channels with the assistance of our wonderful community engagement manager, Juanita Waltower. So ideally online, probably putting together a flyer and also collecting the flyers from the different programs, because most of them do have at least like a one-pager or website that you can go to. So I would say just trying to centrally locate that information through the city's communication channels and then trying to get that out to as many people as possible.
Did anybody have any questions on goal number 1? Shall we share ranking, or how do you want to do this?
Yeah, let's do that. So we have our first gap that was identified by our assistant city manager, which is to repair housing. And we can supplement that with the comments from our community economic development manager to generate awareness of the grants or funding available to repair housing stock. So that's one gap. Thanks for the gap.
Chair, can I add one more thing? And this ties in with Ms. Homan's comments, but I think also, and our city planner's comments, but as well as I think some of the other goals, and that's making sure that we uplift and utilize the changes made through our zoning ordinance update to increase the density. We know through Mishta that there are 190,000 new housing units needed in the state of Michigan to prevent a housing crisis. So though we are a built-out community with the zoning ordinance, in previously single-family only areas, we can now build duplexes, triplexes, quadplexes, accessory dwelling units. I think the development at Kelly and Topher is a great example of that zoning ordinance in action. So I think another thing that we could do, and potentially another goal to add, would be to get the word out to developers that we are not just a redevelopment-ready community, but that we have a zoning ordinance that's designed to allow them, even in a built-out community like Eastpointe, to build up or build out on the existing land.
It's another gap from our community economic development manager. So would you guys like to rank these 1 through 9 now, including the gaps? Is there any goal that we want to strike?
Chair, during my initial review of this, because I did go through and do my own rankings and comments, which was where what I just shared with you came from, I didn't strike any from this one, but the more I read them, the more I realize there are some similarities in some of the goals. So I'm not saying that we have to condense them, but certainly something for consideration.
So with the condensing, say for example, were you thinking of number one and 3 to be condensed? That's one of the 2 I was looking at. I said it's almost reading the same.
Chair, Commissioner Moody, I would concur and also loop number 2 in that as well.
Okay.
So essentially looking at combining 1, 2, and 3. Mr. Broll, I think you were moving in.
When I went through the ranking, I looked at number 2 as perhaps the most important one. It's a very broad statement, but maintain. I was focused on maintain current housing stock through the city. So if you look at number 4, 5, 6, we're a built-out city. There will be opportunities, but there won't be many. We're a built-out city. So to me, again, this goes back to my entire premise of what I said when we first started talking about it. The quality of the housing is the most critical thing, in my opinion, that this city faces in terms of these goals. So number 2 to me maintain the housing stock means let's not let it recede. Hopefully, we can improve it, and that's where the and upgrade comes in, but, I see that as like, how do we maintain, what programs, how can we promote having a quality housing stock? Our houses are built in the 1950s predominantly, and if somebody does not put money into their houses, these houses are going to go down, and they're going to go down quickly. So how do we stop that from happening? So I personally think number 2 should stand on its own, and you can put the maintain or however we want to rephrase that, but number 2 is super significant.
Chair. I also agree with Mr. Broll or Commissioner Brolin would, in looking at it a little bit more, maybe you could combine the first part of 3 into 2 and the second part of 3 into 1. So that would look something along the lines of maintain and upgrade current housing stock throughout the city by facilitating rehabilitation of existing homes. And then you could move that second part under 1, encouraging the construction of new homes and promoting the development of public improvements and open space. That could be another opportunity. Not saying we have to do it, just a thought.
I mean, this exercise is to get the spice of what we're thinking. It's not to define, to a degree. So, we're communicating how we feel about these objectives.
Thank you.
Chair. So my thought along those lines then is to enforce property maintenance through code enforcement because that helps you to maintain your home, is my thought. And then, the proper training of code enforcement to identify the actual problems and not nitpick residents on other things. Like a garage that's falling apart. That is definitely a code enforcement thing that would be to maintain, although I don't understand people that buy homes and don't maintain them, but they're there. I have one next door to me.
Me too.
Yeah, I don't want to be in my backyard looking at this garage falling apart and rodents everywhere and, code enforcement. I feel bad for them because without giving them permission to come in your yard, and if you can't see it from the street, that's, I think, the issue that they have with trying to ticket the people and have them maintain their property. But I think that that part of code enforcement needs to go with the maintaining the housing.
And the other thing that's awkward for a lot of people is they don't want to be that person who their neighbor knows outed them to code enforcement. So I think a lot of things go by the wayside because they're fearful for retaliation. In retaliation could be many things. I'm not saying it's creating a feud, but some people just are scared to get out there. And if you're an older person and you've got a young couple living next to you and their house is just going to seed, that person is not going to feel comfortable saying something.
I would agree with that.
But I would also strike the beautification committee part. I think that all that should be in code enforcement. I don't know where the beautification committee would be. Beautification is in the eye of the beholder. Some people think that concrete is beautiful. Some people think flowers are beautiful. That's kind of an ambiguous thing.
So I had number 7, enforce property management as my second highest rated item as well. So, and I agree with everything Ms. Ulinski said. The other 2 that were important to me was number 1, and encourage the development of housing. Really, my focus there was the mixed use housing. We've talked about there are certain corridors, certain areas that, are along arteries, and we can make those into mixed use, which is attractive to me in our city. So I think that would be something I'd be favorable about. And number 3, talks about facilitating rehabilitation of existing homes, and that goes just goes back to the crux of what what I'm concerned about, so. And again, 4, 5, and 6, to me, they're all more of the nature of new residences, and again, important, opportunities will come, but not a lot. So, in my opinion, that should not be our primary focus.
Any further discussion on goal number 1?
I'm a little confused, I guess, on number 7. I didn't think that this particular group works to enforce property maintenance through code enforcement. I don't understand why that would even be a goal for the planning commission. I think that belongs like in the PD.
Chair. And thanks for pointing that out. So I'm happy to clarify. So this is an exercise to set goals for the city of Eastpointe. And because we're setting goals for the master plan. And I define the master plan by creating goals, objectives, projects to assist with the future growth of the city and to assist with the redevelopment needs of the city. So growth and redevelopment. That's what a master plan does. So it's not the goals of the planning commission, it's the goals of the city. And the planning commission is the entity that oversees the creation of the master plan, but city council adopts it, approves and adopts it. So planning commission workshops it. We're gonna have a joint workshop with city council coming to a meeting near you, and, or something like that. And city council in the end approves and adopts the master plan. So why we have this property maintenance through code enforcement, I'm assuming it's just, it was a priority that we heard through community engagement in the past, that we want to utilize code enforcement more as a tool to enhance existing property. So if it's no longer relevant though, that's why we're updating.
I think it's still relevant. Just a matter of implementing.
Chair?
Please.
So I'm thinking that we're getting good feedback on the language of the goals that we'd like. I'm hearing some consensus towards ranking, but we can always revisit this exercise. So right now we could get the language of the objectives that we like, and if you'd like in the future, we could revisit the scores. What's the thought? You like that? Okay. You like that?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
We're also 3 shy.
Yeah, okay, so we'll tidy up our objectives. In no way this is set in stone. I mean, the master plan process also involves a lot of public engagement, but we're just laying the foundation right now.
But we're not redoing, we're just cleaning up and augmenting, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
Well,
Filling
and
in any gaps, Chair.
public engagement to me is definitely always important in making decisions. I will reference the exercise that McKenna did and the city did at the Gratiot Cruise, getting input from residents. I just feel that that is so important because these are the people living here and we want to know what they want. I get prioritizing it and putting it together, but, you know, hearing what they want is always important to me.
Yes, thank you for adding that, Secretary. Before we go on to the next exercise, I thought it might be helpful to look at the master plan so you understand why we are ranking these objectives. And we don't, like, again, we'll revisit the ranking of objectives and lay the foundation of what we would like. But the implementation matrix is the most important part of a master plan, because it categorizes our goals and objectives, and then in order of priority, timeline, and funding's available, and who's taking the lead on this project. So the way we score our objectives is critical to understanding how we will create this matrix to prioritize them in the finished action plan. And action plans are always towards the end of master plans, when you're just scrolling through a master plan on your own. All right, Chair.
Goal number 2.
Community building. 1, develop safe and secure recreation facilities and programs that meet the needs of citizens in the community. 2, provide space for active and passive recreation and encourage site development that is sensitive to the area's built and natural environment. 3, provide incentives, density bonus, creative design, etc., to ensure quality open space is incorporated into new development. Okay. 4, seek opportunities to share facilities with other public, quasi-public agencies. So these would be partnering with RARE, as our Community Economic Development Manager pointed out. 5, assemble properties that create linkages connecting to interior and exterior parks for pedestrians, bicyclists, and similar uses. Okay, it's creating paths. 6, expand the quality and quantity of local festivals, shows, parades, events. So that's special events. 7, encourage bike parking. So more bike parking. 8, develop a local complete streets policy and support regional efforts to invest in non-motorized transportation and transit. We're going to be talking about complete streets later today, but the whole idea of complete street is to make sure that the street is equal to all users or equitable to all users, not just prioritizing vehicles, but also the people that walk through the streets, stroll through the streets, roll through the streets, okay, etc. 9, implement a transparent planning process. 10, protect historic properties that have cultural significance. 11, develop a plan for city-owned property in concert with strategies found in the master plan zoning ordinance. Are there any gaps?
Sure. I'd actually like a little more clarification on item 11.
Mr. Chair, if I may,
Please.
there's a large number of federal lawsuits going on right now as it relates to the tax foreclosure process. And at this time, it appears that municipalities will not be getting any more tax foreclosed properties until the litigation is settled and new laws are put in place. So that's probably something that we could remove.
Strike 11. Seems to me that items 1 and 2 could potentially be merged into one bullet point.
Chair?
Please.
Not to detract away from your current point, but I just wanted to share, I know we were talking about combining, eliminating things. For goal 3, in looking at it, I thought that might make more sense to be included in the neighborhood section of the goals. And then for item 7 and 8, those two seem that they would be more appropriate under goal 4, transportation. So, and in fact, I have to go and look in a second, but I'm pretty sure 8 is actually already included in transportation. So that might be already a duplicate.
I'm good with that.
Mm-hmm.
Item 10, historic properties. Do we have anything historic here? I think we've torn down everything that's historic.
No, we have the schoolhouse.
1,
There's the military museum.
it's not historic.
Chair, we have a number of historic homes, but not as many commercial buildings. In addition to the schoolhouse, we have 3 what I would consider to be historic churches, St. Veronica, Emmanuel United Methodist Church, and what's the third one? It's escaping me now. And of course, right next door, St. Peter's Lutheran Church. And then in terms of commercial buildings, the two that come to mind are our former bank buildings, which are now Chemtech, and then the Stevens building, which has a couple of different storefronts and some apartments above. And then beyond that, there are a number of Sears Kit homes. Are you all familiar with those? Okay. So I see some yes and I see some no. For those of you that aren't familiar, those were homes that could be purchased through the Sears catalog, right, prior to the department store. From former Mayor Pixley, she said that they would come by train from Chicago up to Fraser, and they'd bring them on a wagon down to halfway Erin Township, whatever it was at that point. Everything would be numbered. You could design things. So we have a number of those. I believe a few are on Crescentwood, a few are kind of up over by Cloverleaf, and then also in the Rain subdivision. So think South Park, North Park, Charles R., Camden, and there may even be one other street I'm missing. There are a number of historic homes in that section. There is a program through the State Historic Preservation Office where Eastpointe could become a certified local government if we so choose. So if we did want to pursue that, I would recommend enhancing that goal by saying that to direct city administration to go through that process.
So my next question is, how does the city protect property that is owned by private individuals?
The certified local government process, though it's been a while since I've went through it, from my understanding, part of that is putting together an assessment or an inventory of historic properties within the city. Another step would be creating a historic district commission that would review and designate properties or district as historic for X, Y, and Z reasons. Typically, historic district designations just affect the exterior and don't affect the interior of the building. So as long as you maintain the exterior historic character, you can more or less do what you want on the inside. So again, it's been a while since I've looked into this, but something we could pursue if folks are interested.
It's still private property. People can do whatever they want to the front of their house.
That's true.
Chair. Oh, good.
That is a true point, but I personally would feel that if you have a historic home, you would want to keep the character of it.
My house is coming up on 100 years old, and I'm not going to change the character, but, you know, there are things that I'd like to do that if I change the facade of the house and it became historic, it's my right to change.
100%.
But, you know,
But my question, Ian, is for you. What does the city benefit by going through being historic government?
So becoming a certified local government opens us up to funding opportunities through the State Historic Preservation Office for, basically exterior renovations and things that property owners would be able to apply for to maintain and update and maintain the historical character. Also, most communities find that designating historic buildings or historic districts increases the property value in that district, but then I would even say typically in the immediate area or vicinity beyond that building or those homes.
I like it.
So those would be the main things, but they're, and happy to get together information and send you out after the meeting more information about the Certified Local Government Program for you to review.
Chair, I was going to add, this is a great example of us not needing to have the whole policy written out. Like, we don't have to be an active participant in the certified local government pathway yet, but our foot in the door is having an objective to preserve historic buildings. And that's the type of thinking that I'd like to brainstorm right now with you, is where do we want to have those objectives? Like, we don't have to have all of the answers right now or be in deep with new policy, but where do we see ourselves going? And we just want to have that talking point out there in our master plan.
okay. Does anybody have any further comment on the objectives? Seeing none.
Sorry, Chair.
Go on.
Okay. I know I'm not normally this chatty, but like I said, I went through this thing up, down, left, right. Just some additional objectives to consider. Again, we don't have to add them, but just some things that I was thinking about, some things that continue to help us align with MEDC and Stephanie Pena's redevelopment ready community goals. Developing a citywide branding and marketing plan, including, that could look like a lot of different things, but I'll just leave it at that for now. Creating a public participation plan, and then also, potentially looking at how we are organizing or engaging volunteers, whether that's at a citywide or a block level or neighborhood block level or business block level.
Okay.
I want to hear about this branding campaign. Well, I would love to hear the outline of what your idea would be on that.
I don't have anything outlined as of yet, so yeah, and that would again require the assistance of our wonderful community engagement manager, Juanita Walltower. So we haven't really talked about it all that much. It's more or less much like the public participation plan. It is a redevelopment ready community requirement, and she has been working diligently since she started here, putting together some different ideas and concepts and really designing some beautiful flyers, updating our website. So I think we're starting to move in that direction, but just creating some sort of unifying document for everyone to be able to work off of. So we're all moving in the same direction, I think is the general goal, if you will.
Thank you. Yep, good idea.
Okay. Number 3.
All right, so this is the rebranded commercial goal. 1, maintain and promote the redevelopment, rehabilitation, the adaptive reuse of existing commercial sites and buildings within existing business districts. Okay, so maintain existing commercial sites. 2, revise signage design standards to ensure future uniformity and architectural character based on each district. Okay, so 2, elevate design standards, so specifically sign design standards. 3, capitalize on assets and activity centers by creating or expanding mixed-use districts. Okay. 4, increase communication between Eastpointe and its business, community chamber, and DDA. 5, undertake streetscape improvements within the business districts to create cohesive districts that residents and visitors recognize as districts with elements of green design.
Can I stop you for a second?
Let's do it.
I'm going to go back to number 4.
Okay.
Love the DDA. Small chunk. There are so many businesses in this city that do not reap any benefit of the DDA. There are more businesses outside of the DDA that probably contribute a whole lot more to the tax base and to patronage that get no lovin' because they're not in the DDA. I would like to see the DDA struck from that and just make it Eastpointe, its business community, as well as the chamber. And I might even say strike the chamber, because not every member and not every business in the city is a member of the Chamber of Commerce. It needs to be a partnership between the city and the business owner, regardless of where they are.
Chair,
Yes.
I agree, but I don't believe it's an either or. I think it's a yes and I think the DDA has existed for a long time. It exists for a reason, and I think it has accomplished a number of goals that it has set out to do over the years. My desire or some of my thoughts around this would be to create similar structures in other parts of the city in order to provide the same level of support and service and help those businesses actually reap the benefits, similar to what we see in the DDA. So That could be part of a economic development strategy that hopefully, along with the Parks and Rec plan and this master plan, we'll be able to put together this year to meet that RRC requirement. But the chamber has been in existence since 1922, so I would hesitate to strike them from it, and though the DDA hasn't been around quite as long, we're in the process of putting together a really exciting community gathering space and updating a number of other amenities. So I hear what you're saying, where sometimes it can feel like the DDA is not doing enough, or it's
Not saying that.
not that, okay.
I'm not saying the chamber's not doing enough. I'm just simply saying, outside of that little pocket at Gratiot 9 Mile, everybody else is just ignored for the most part.
Chair.
Has anybody ever thought about doing a Eastpointe Merchants Association? Please.
So to kind of piggyback off of Ian, I agree with him. I think this is saying communication. I think the communication between all of those different types, the city, the business community, the chamber, and DDA, is very relevant. You know, for each of them to bounce ideas or contribute, to tell their needs. I think each of them is an integral part of the city.
Don't disagree. I just think that everybody needs to be on a level playing field.
I don't disagree with that, but I think that's something that the communication aspect comes into play with that.
Chair. As someone now who's canvassed 9 Mile from Beechwood to I-94, we're working on it. I promise we're working on it. And we'll soon be starting on Kelly between 8 and 10 to go along with the complete streets planning process that we've been doing. I promise we're working on it. We're not there yet. We have a while to go. We're a small but mighty team, so we will get there. But all I'm saying is don't strike the partners that we have, and let us continue to try and build new partnerships. So yes, I love your idea. We used to have, back in the day, I think it was like the Eastpointe Business Alliance or something like that. It hasn't been around for a number of years, and I think that came around the same time as the formation of the DDA, as kind of like an extension to say, you know, yeah, the DDA, we're focusing on these businesses and supporting them, but also we realize there are over 700 businesses throughout our 5.2, 5.4 square miles, and we need to make sure that they all feel supported and promoted, so.
Many years ago, my family had a small clothing store in Washington State, and we had a downtown merchants association. And the membership was nominal. But this association got together twice a year and put on a heritage days, and they closed like a certain street, and you had street vendors, you had all sorts of things going on. You had art fair, you had all these great things. And it was all the businesses coming together to make things happen. And I think this, you know, I'm in my mind, I'm thinking Kelly Road, perfect location for this type of thing.
And I'm sure you can remember, sorry, Chair. I'm sure you can remember the DDA has put on those events in the past, and just last year we brought back our summer concert series to great fanfare. We'll be doing 6 concerts this year instead of 4. And at our next meeting on February 13th, we will be going through and planning what ideally will be a quarterly event culminating in our annual Christmas tree lighting that the DDA formally adopted last year. So again, the DDA can't do it all. It does focus on a small area, but I don't want to count it out just because it doesn't include everyone, but we're working on including everyone in other ways.
All right.
6, develop a zoning district or overlay district for 9 Mile corridor to proactively encourage redevelopment that is consistent with the local commercial neighborhood mixed-use designation on the future land use map. Well, we did that, didn't we?
Yeah.
All right, high fives all around the board. There we go, thank you for that. 7, a slow clap, we'll take it. 7, work with county, state, federal agencies to identify programs and offer incentives to businesses looking to establish within Eastpointe. Okay, so that's more partnerships. 8, develop and maintain an inventory of vacant properties and evaluate and prioritize redevelopment depending on location, size, future land use, potential revenue. 9, encourage innovative design consistent with smart growth principles, including a mixture of uses and large multi-parcel development projects. 10, market the unique attributes of the city as a means of attracting new and retaining existing businesses. 11, promote retail, office, mixed-use, core redevelopment at and near the intersection of 9 and Gratiot. All right, well, our zoning ordinance helps us do that. 12, allow for denser development of office uses to create a critical mass of knowledge workers. 13, permit retail and office expansion on redevelopment onto adjacent residential parcels that are no longer viably used for residences.
The devil is a knowledge worker.
The devil? What?
What the devil is a knowledge worker?
Chair?
Yeah.
It would probably be someone working for like a technology company, startup, or, working for a company in a related field.
And the point behind that is those are typically going to be higher paying jobs, so you're building a core of people that have higher fluent, higher incomes. So that's why some cities do focus on knowledge workers.
Look at you knowing about this.
Okay, knowledge worker.
Is that the right phrase to use, knowledge worker? Is there something else that we could put there that doesn't sound so ambiguous? Knowledge worker could be a teacher.
Mm-hmm.
Teachers don't get paid enough. Is that what she said? I mean, again, the point of the knowledge worker is they're some more fluent because of their position, their job, and their knowledge, yeah. Technology is obviously the easy one, so.
Being the child of a teacher, they do not get paid enough. Yes, ma'am. My mama did good, though.
Okay. 14, develop the downtown by providing businesses with incentives such as streetscape improvements, low-interest loans for facade improvements, creative parking, and annual events. All right, well, that's kind of miscellaneous. 15, recognize Kelly Road as a draw for the community. Just keep that there. 16, encourage diversified industrial base by acknowledging the changing economy and permitting the growth of high technology, low impact green business and life science knowledge-based industries. 17, identify incentives and flexible mechanisms to permit the conversion of existing industrial sites. 18, remediate potential brownfield contamination. 19, encourage owners of industrial property to improve property appearance and provide buffering screening to protect neighbors.
So for 19, do we want to encourage only industrial properties? Like, I think we need to encourage all business owners. And in going through this, guess what I'm going to bring up?
Rope letting.
Yeah, so, and Ian said you walked Beechwood to 94 on 9 Mile, and you're going to do Kelly, which have a ton of businesses that have our lovely rope lighting ordinance breakers. And I don't think that's what I would consider improving property appearance. And I see new places opening up. There's one on 8 Mile that they're redoing the building on Virginia and 8 Mile that put up all this rope lighting and it blinks. Oh, be still my heart. So yeah, I say all businesses. Just my thought.
I'm still trying to wrap my head around 16. Encourage a diversified industrial base by acknowledging the changing economy and permitting the growth of high technology, low impact, green business, and life science and knowledge-based industries. The only green-based business that I know of that's going to be coming to this city is marijuana. Life sciences, are we going to become an incubator for a pharmaceutical company? High technology. Office Depot sells computers. I mean, that's kind of pie in the sky language there.
Chair, what if we were to simplify it and say promote light industrial business?
How about we say promote alternative industrial businesses? So if somebody is making widgets or whatever, just something, I guess diversified works, but.
Well, we have so few parcels of industrial, I don't know why we would focus on that. Like, to me, that's not.
I don't disagree with that either.
Do you know, Mr. McCain, how many parcels we have that are zoned industrial?
Active industrial.
Let's see.
I mean,
I can pull.
no, I'll put you on the spot, but I mean, it's like 10, right?
Yeah, it's around 10.
not a lot.
Yes, that's correct. Very small number.
And they're probably all on 10 Mile and maybe one or two on Stevens.
Stevens, 10, yeah.
But Chair, isn't the crux of 16 acknowledging the changing economy and permitting growth of these new businesses?
As
And
a-
isn't that what we want?
Yes, but as a built-out community, where do they go?
How many are vacant? Where are they able to go?
Well, we have green businesses coming, hopefully one day.
Chair, kind of towards some of my comments earlier, our new zoning ordinance, we believe, includes elements that could encourage more small-scale industrial, again, more, think makers, right? Like people making candles, food-based products, trying to think of other examples. But think of the concept as simply as they would have a storefront, they would have a small area in the front to sell their good or service, and then in the back, they might be making it. So it wouldn't be something that, could potentially, contaminate the area or things like that, right? But it would be a higher kind of use category than just a traditional retail store. Does that make sense?
Question, Chair? So that just gave me a thought, Ian. So I have seen, I don't know if they do it in the malls anymore, and I've seen it in other communities where they may have like one bigger storefront and several vendors come to that storefront and like rent a space, so to speak, and then you have multiple like vendors.
The Russell Bazaar downtown. That building, the Russell Building off of 75, where you have all these different vendors that go in, they have little stalls.
Yeah,
Or Rust Belt Market in Ferndale, or, there's a lot of different examples. But yes, exactly. It could be something like that.
I would love something like that. It would give people that actually have a craft, a place to not be impacted by, a high rent if they're splitting, different things and, kind of, I don't want to say one-stop shopping, but, you have several things, or like when they do the Detroit market fairs at Eastern Market, and you can just go and shop different vendors. I know we have a lot of residents who are crafters in different areas, and something like that would be wonderful.
Support DIY entrepreneurs. Okay.
So quick question on that, candle maker, is that permitted within the B3? Mara, how would that be applied to, which zoning ordinance would allow for that?
Okay, so, sure. If they wanted to if someone came in and wanted to open up a candle making facility
Make them in
and.
the back, sell them in the front. right?
Sell them in the front.
That
Okay,
was the example.
they would be considered retail.
Okay, so that's retail. So when you say manufacturing facility there that's highlighted, that's really, to me, I think, well, that's an industrial zoning. That's not true. And candle making is pretty benign, I would assume. Maybe I'm wrong, I don't know. But so maybe, just trying to think of a way to term that better. Doesn't have to be solved today, but I'm just saying, it's to me, when I see manufacturing facility, I'm thinking that's industrial zoning. But that's not the case. So I don't know if there's a better way to term it.
We also have wholesale facility, which is allowed in more districts.
We don't need to solve it today, but I mean, that is, to me, there's a gap there.
Mm-hmm.
So the question, so let's differentiate what is a wholesale facility versus a wholesale office?
Okay.
So if I
Well,
want
go
to
the
take office space
definitions.
somewhere in the city, I'm a wholesaler, so that would be a wholesale office, but a wholesale facility, would that be like a warehouse housing inventory of some sorts to be sold to a retail establishment?
Yeah. So maybe we combine those two, warehouse and wholesale facility.
Mhm.
Because they're one and the same. They're housing inventory of some
Mhm.
sorts.
Although according to that chart, they have different zoning.
So the way I see wholesale facility, and I see there's similarities, because a wholesale facility is a warehouse, but a wholesale facility offers space for people to come in and buy products at cost, and a warehouse does not.
I dispute that, actually, as that's my business. You can't go to my warehouse and buy my products at wholesale price.
You can?
You cannot.
Yeah, that's what I just said.
Because most of the time, a wholesale facility, that merchandise is held for established customers that are buying those products to retail, to sell at a retail price, not a wholesale price. So, warehouse and wholesale facility are just about one and the same.
I've said my point.
Moving on.
We don't have to keep going.
She's got nothing else. All right, let's get back to the process here.
Do we have any other comments, Chair, for our
Anything else on this item?
commercial
On goal number 3,
Yes.
I mean, I would just say that number 1 is much like number 1, which is maintain and promote the redevelopment, rehabilitation, and adaptive reuse of existing commercial sites and buildings within existing business districts. That to me that's very similar to what I was saying about our housing stock. So to me, that is the goal I pinpointed was my top goal of this list. And on the second one, we already did it, number 6. We've already completed that. That's good. Yeah.
I think number 7, working with county, state, and federal agencies for programs and incentives is also important in drawing new business and maintaining businesses.
I agree with you. That is one of the ones I had. It's number 1, actually. Very high importance.
Again, it's just a matter of disseminating that information to people that want to come here.
Yeah, it's a good one. I had it as number 4, so I'm up there with you.
What item did you have as number 4?
Number 7, they had it as number 1, or at least Ms. Ulinski
On the
did, but I had it as number 4. Number
top.
7?
No, I think number 1 is number 1.
Oh.
But I
7 is
think
at the
number
top.
2 is number 7,
Gotcha.
working in partnerships.
Oh, number 2. Okay. Thank you.
Chair? Number 10, I believe, would fit better under community building. So that was one of my recommendations.
Okay.
I would add to number 7, nonprofits as well, because a number of the business support organizations, the 20-plus that we have listed on the website that we have working relationships with, are actually nonprofit organizations. It's not to say we don't have relationships with other municipalities, like the City of Roseville, or a regional organization like a SEMCOG, or a state organization like MEDC, but nonprofits do play a critical role in the business support organization, the entrepreneurial ecosystem in the region. So I would add them to that item.
To item 7.
Correct.
So you want to help businesses as well as nonprofits to establish in the city?
Not exactly. I mean, I'm not opposed to helping nonprofits, coming from a community development lens, but I'm saying that in terms of like outlining partners to work with to support our local businesses, a number of them are nonprofit 501c3 organizations. And I guess in that same vein, and now I'm looking at it, it ties in a little bit with 4, because under 4 I have adding the business support organizations that I uplifted previously, as well as, and this was from Economic Development Conference I attended recently, the library, because they can be a critical conduit for information and small business support as well. And as I'm sure many of you know, our library does an amazing job of providing information and resources to the community. So definitely want to include them on this.
I have a question on number 11. Promote retail, office, and mixed-use core redevelopment at and near the intersection of 9 Mile and Gratiot. In the zoning ordinance, is local, commercial, and neighborhood mixed use, that would be the spirit of that, right? That zoning would be the spirit of number 11. Would flexible residential neighborhood mixed use be part of that as well?
Yes,
It would.
yes.
Flexible residential neighborhood mixed use, what's included in that? Type of businesses or housing is included in that?
Flexible residential,
I'll read it. Flexible residential neighborhood mixed use.
so that's residential projects that they typically have retail on the bottom and residential on the top.
They do. Okay, then what's local commercial? Well, what's the difference between that and local commercial and neighborhood mixed use? I'm specifically looking at the future land use map.
Oh, okay, that's helpful. So local commercial neighborhood mixed use is similar. Oh, we're looking at the future land use map? Okay. Let me pull this up.
Chair, just to add a comment on this before we actually dive into it fully, but for the local commercial and neighborhood mixed use section, you'll notice most of those properties, in fact, I think all of them, pretty much with the exception of a few on 8 and 10 Mile, are along 9 Mile. So I had suggested to move those to Main Street mixed use, but now that I'm looking at it a little bit more, maybe not. So I was trying to align these a little bit closer with the new zoning ordinance map. So we might want to take a look at that and compare this and see if we like the outcome of that map and just make sure that they match up.
Kind of to piggyback.
I just want to make sure, because this is an important question. I want to understand the difference between what's allowed in both of those. Because it leads into another question, and it kind of leads me back to number 11 again.
I'm pulling up the definitions of each district. Okay. Chair. So Community Economic Development Director or Manager McCain brought up a good point, and part of his exercise is to look at the future land use map and see if these districts are still relevant today and how we would adjust their language with the new land use policy that we just recently created, but also we understand that communities are fluid, they're subject to change, goals are subject to change. So this future land use map does need to be updated. But to the question, what's the difference between local commercial, neighborhood mixed use, and flexible residential? Okay, the local commercial neighborhood mixed use category permits daily services and goods to be readily available for the surrounding communities, in addition to context-sensitive live-work developments, residential units, offices, smaller scale commercial uses. These usually lend themselves to encourage a walkable, pedestrian-oriented neighborhood. These areas are also intended to accommodate uses that can serve as transitional areas between residential districts and Eastpointe's more intensive auto-focused business districts. Okay, so that's interesting. This district is intended to serve as a medium between residential districts and Eastpointe's more intensive auto-focused business districts. So if we look on the map for light pink, I guess that shows, yeah, the interchange between residential and larger auto-oriented regional uses. Moving to flexible residential, which is featured along Kelly primarily. This land use space, and I'll put a pin in that, we can change these categories because, to your point, we can be more specific of what we actually mean. So thank you, and we can always improve. So residential, flexible residential. The future land use designation applies to Kelly Road and is intended to revitalize the corridor through the creation of social and economic connections. So it's really focused on Kelly Road. It says it right in its definition. So Kelly Road.
So it does not include retail, personal service, does it? I don't think it does.
Missing middle housing, largely surrounded by, okay, further the corridor will require access management best practices, corridor treatment. So within the corridor, there should be a couple categories. Flexible residential. Okay, so flexible residential is a component of Kelly Road. So I think that means, let's see, areas planned for compact multifamily development that are mainly designed to meet the demand of young professionals. So this is like missing middle housing, and that create density around existing commercial areas. All right, moving on to the next page.
We had a good plan for Kelly Road.
Not so sure.
Okay, so here's some of the housing typologies for flexible residential. Neighborhood mixed use. This is also a component of the Kelly Road corridor. So a wide variety of neighborhood serving uses and businesses may be appropriate. This includes specialty retail establishments, offices, coffee shops, service establishments, etc. So yes, it's also a mix of commercial.
So what's the difference between, so thank you for clarifying. My concern was going to be that we didn't have commercial on Kelly. I thought that's how I was reading it originally. So thank you for clarifying that we can have offices, coffee shops, service establishments. But what is the difference then between that and local commercial and neighborhood? I mean, they're almost the same, or they are the same. Maybe they're not, but it seems like they're the same.
I would say that they are very similar.
Okay. So I think we need, that's something we need to address. And then going back, how this relates to number 11, and I was going to bring that up on the future land use map that, Kelly's, got under the legend is for flexible residential neighborhood mixed use, which I didn't think included those things like office and coffee shop services, but apparently it does. So that's good news. But I think number 11 is very specific to 9 Mile and Gratiot. And I think we should expand number 11. So let me read number 11. Promote retail, office, and mixed-use core redevelopment at or near the intersection of 9 Mile and Gratiot. I mean, I would throw Kelly on that statement. I don't know why 9 and Gratiot was even pinpointed. Be interested to hear that. But I think, for me, Kelly would be a great spot to expand that statement and start targeting these developments that are mixed use. I would love to see that.
Would number 11 be more towards the vision of the Four Corners project that was brought up last year for a 20, 30-year road vision?
Yes, Chair, that would be the intent behind 11. And we can always add another gap, which is to support Kelly Road mixed use.
Chair and Commissioner Broll, we are working on a plan right now, a complete streets plan for Kelly Road that will be designed, if you're not familiar with a complete street, to provide equitable access to any user. I believe Planner Bradaszewski was talking about it earlier. So whether you're driving, walking, biking, or on a bus, you'd be able to get to where you need to go in a safe and efficient manner. So that could look like shifting around some of the things, not necessarily eliminating parking, but just kind of shifting the way that it looks, perhaps providing a dedicated bus lane, maybe adding bike lanes. There's all sorts of different things that we could do. Our zoning administrator has put together some initial renderings and has also worked with AEW on the engineering side of things. So we are coming close to a public meeting. It's looking like it's going to be in late March to share some of those initial plans or ideas that we've put together with the steering committee from the respective cities and other regional partners. So I would highly encourage you, once we have a date, to come out to that, check out what we've envisioned based on the master plan and some of the other community engagement and planning that we've done around Kelly and throughout the city to see what we have in store, which I believe, though it won't be cheap if implemented, will be the impetus for the kind of developments that we've been discussing and are describing tonight.
You have been chatty tonight.
I love it.
Chair?
You're trying to get your points for Stephanie Pena, aren't you?
I mean, I wouldn't be a good economic development manager if I didn't, right? Gotta check off those boxes.
Does anybody have anything else on this item? Transportation.
Okay. Oh,
Chair,
You have an item.
I have a few. Promise I'll be less chatty at the next meeting. How does that sound? And I think this goes along with some of the things that we had already been discussing and some of the other points. 16, so basically just including this language somehow to support incubators, co-working, and maker spaces to catalyze and grow new businesses of different types, not just knowledge worker businesses, but also, some of the maker spaces, the candle makers, right, that we were talking about as well. A creation of business district funding mechanisms, so similar to the DDA, we could look in other parts of the city at establishing a business improvement district, business improvement zone, corridor improvement authority. There's all sorts of different things that we could potentially look at to support current and future economic development activities, whether that's supporting existing businesses, attracting new businesses, or spurring development or redevelopment projects along those corridors. And last but not least, for those of you that don't know, Michigan has the second greatest crop diversity in the country behind California, which is pretty incredible considering we have a shorter growing season. And in that respect, supporting the creation of food-based businesses, including forming some sort of community-owned or even a privately-owned commercial kitchen to incubate and support those businesses from operating under cottage to actually being able to open their own storefronts or sell in the Meijers and Kroger's and other grocery stores.
Chair, I just have to ask Ian, because all night, he has mentioned candle making. Do you have a side hustle, Ian?
I don't make candles, but I like them. I don't know why that was the one that I picked, but sorry. No candle making side hustle now or planned in the future.
Not yet.
Sure about that?
No.
Don't make Sheila call code enforcement. And don't you dare put too many in the window that look like rope lighting.
I was going to say, Chair, I promise to not, if I ever open a candle making business, I will not have rope lighting in the windows, per Commissioner Ulinski.
All right, any more, Mr. McCain? Transportation.
Transportation. 1, create and adopt a mobility plan. 2, provide for complete streets on all Eastpointe roadways. 3, based on the road network hierarchy, develop standards for functional classification. Work with neighboring local, county, state jurisdictions to establish safe, attractive, and equitable standards for public right-of-way. 4, establish sidewalks and pathways that support multimodal access throughout the city.
Explain.
Okay, so multimodal is defined by different types of transportation than vehicle. So bus, scooter, bicycle.
Sidewalk. How does this pertain to a sidewalk?
So that would be wider sidewalks to allow for more different types of mobile users. So not just pedestrians, but bicyclists, people that wheel, scooters.
But isn't the standard, aren't bikes supposed to be in the road, not being ridden on sidewalks?
Well, we have the language pathways. However, this is the former master plan, so let's upgrade it.
Unless you're talking about the little rascal that you scoot along in, it just seems.
I don't know, personally, I do not ride my bike in the street because the drivers are too crazy.
And I would be with you, but I thought legally you were supposed to ride bikes in the street. Just like those little bird scooters when they were around before they went bankrupt. On the bottom of the thing, it said to use them in the streets, which made no sense to me. Why would you use a scooter in a city like ours where people drive like crazy? So I guess I would like to see a break between that somehow, or clean up the language. Yes.
Chair. In my notes, I recommended combining items 4 and 6 because they are very similar, and 6, I think, gets into a little bit more of the nitty-gritty that you're alluding to in your comments.
Okay. Thank you.
5, provide gathering areas for people of all age groups and physical abilities, including a diversity of settings to accommodate groups of various sizes. Provide accessible pathways to gathering spaces and public amenities where seating is appropriate. Incorporate a variety of seating to accommodate a range of physical abilities. Ensure permanent ADA, barrier-free, compliant, and accessible seating. Okay, so it's all about accessibility.
Every quarter mile.
That's what it says.
Ensure permanent ADA compliant and accessible seating every quarter mile. Are you talking about benches?
Yes, benches can be an option.
Okay.
I think this is to help support also those who cannot walk as well as a typical walker, and it's good to have areas for respite. So that's why these seating areas are recommended to be as common as every quarter mile.
I'm curious, if your completed streets program runs through a neighborhood, Like, would there be capability to put it on a neighbor's lawn? Like, we have a built-out city, and so if you go through a neighborhood, where would you put it? I'm curious, it's an interesting concept, where would you put it?
Yeah, that's fair. So, if you're talking about residential areas.
Because completed streets will incorporate, bike lanes or bike paths, right, through neighborhoods, right?
Yes.
Yep, so.
Well, sometimes there's like neighborhood committees that can opt in to provide benches on their property. But more so, I get that the city's built out, but Complete Streets is about repurposing the existing land that we have and dividing those uses up for a variety of users. So repurposing existing land. So we would take away from perhaps a vehicle driving lane and repurpose that space to expand the sidewalk. Or like take away from a parking lane and repurpose it to create a bike lane.
I didn't know if it was like a fire hydrant, right? So a fire hydrant would be an example of something that is on a residential parcel. However, it's not the resident's job to upkeep it. It'd be similar to a bench. I didn't know if there was a correlation.
Chair, the fire hydrant is typically on the easement area, right? So that, I mean, I know the
It
resident
is.
maintains the grass or if they have trees or other vegetation or things like that. So, I think you'd probably see benches less in residential areas, though it's not saying that we couldn't put them in. I'm thinking of in particular, a good example along Harper Avenue in St. Clair Shores. They have little areas with 2 benches and like a trash can. I don't know if they're exactly every quarter mile, but they've got to be pretty darn close. So I think that would be a good example of these benches in action or, already being implemented in another community. The other thing I'm thinking of too in terms of kind of like public facilities or public things being built on private properties are little free libraries. So I'm not saying we're necessarily going to have a bunch of people that are volunteering to have benches on their front lawns, but, who's to say? We can be creative if we want to, or if people want to provide something like that. There's a great program in Detroit called Sit On It, where they provide benches where there aren't things for bus stops, and they have little free libraries in the bottom. So there's all sorts of fun things that we can do with tactical urbanism.
Just think the language needs to be cleaned up a little bit, and then I would actually go back to number 2. Provide complete streets on all Eastpointe roadways. So you're gonna have you're essentially gonna have a bike lane on every street within Eastpointe. So then we need to define what the roadway is. Because I read that, I think I'm gonna have a bike lane on my street, and I'm gonna have little benches going every quarter mile. So we need to define what is a roadway. Is it a major thoroughfare? Is it a secondary road? I mean, Councilwoman Bashadlek and I are using flocks all the time. I'd love to see that being a complete street because the street sucks. It turns into a pond in the rainy season. You can go swimming in front of St. Barnabas, whatever the church is, what used to be St. Barnabas. So we need to define on number 2, what is a roadway? And then I think we need to clean up the language on 5 a little bit.
Chair, can you follow up on what you mean by defining roadway?
What is a roadway? To me, every street in Eastpointe is a roadway.
Right.
So you want, every street needs to be complete, so a complete street.
Chair, this is not me who wants
I
this.
understand, but
Let's just want to put that out there. This is the city's current master plan, and if it no longer fits the vision, it's our job today, well, throughout the course of the next couple of months, to update it. However, the intent behind number 2 is just to provide complete streets, probably we could say when feasible, on all roadways.
Or we could also strike it. If we don't want it, strike it.
Sure.
Chair, upon my review, I thought that this actually fit better under the community building section if we did want to keep it. But regardless, I do think that it's something that we do need to be more specific on if we do keep it, whether it's here or somewhere else. I will add too that item 7, provide well-designed crosswalks to increase motorist awareness and pedestrian safety. Again, in my notes, I'd recommended including based on ADA standards and incorporating universal design. So maybe we could include it there and still try to accomplish something similar.
I don't mind striking number 2 or just changing the verbiage, encouraging complete streets on permissible Eastpointe roads. Or, you know,
I think you need a complete streets plan. I think the point isn't that you will have bike lanes on every Eastpointe roadway. It's that any roadway is a possible bike lane depending what the plan lays out. Like, you don't have roads that are not possibilities of being it. But the point of is, correct me if I'm wrong, the completed streets, the point is to come up with routes. So you have a subdivision, and in there you may have 1 or 2 routes, and so all streets are potentially a route, but you lay out the route within there, and then that becomes the route. Isn't that true? You could possibly have signs that say this is, you know, Yellow Brick Road Way or something.
That sounds like a mobility plan.
But I thought a mobility plan focused on to and from work, where completed streets is focused more on equality of any mode of transportation. I thought that was the difference between those.
Yes, you're right.
Okay.
Yes.
Chair. In talking with Planner Bradaszewski, mobility plan can include a complete streets plan, and since it is part of our one of our master plan goals, we are in the process of applying for some funding and a little bit of implementation funding to actually put together like a mobility plan that incorporates complete streets, that incorporates Vision Zero, which strives to reduce and ideally eliminate the number of traffic crashes and fatalities on our roadways. So I think it is something that we're striving for, but you can have just a complete streets plan, or, you know, it can also be incorporated in a mobility plan, which I think is kind of what we're looking at or what we're working towards currently.
I still don't like number 2. But it is what it is. You win some, you lose some.
I think, Chair, it's just meant to allow for the opportunity for complete streets throughout Eastpointe, like recognizing complete streets as that goal, like preserving historic buildings, allowing for complete streets.
It's just the ambiguity of the word roadway for me is the issue. That's all.
Chair?
Yeah.
You may remember under Goal 2, Item 8, develop a local complete streets policy and support regional efforts to invest in non-motorized transportation and transit. Do you like that wording a little bit better, since it doesn't say on all Eastpointe roadways, and it gives
Yes.
some greater details in terms of what a complete streets plan is trying to accomplish?
Yes.
So if we moved Goal 2, Item 8, and then replaced it with, for Goal 4, Item 2, you'd be okay with that?
That would be fine.
Does that sound good with everyone else?
Mr. McCain is on fire today. Let me just say
It
that.
is.
I love it.
He's going to go home and make some
Absolutely
candles.
fire.
Where were we?
I don't know.
I don't know anymore.
Moving on.
I think 6.
We're on 6.
We're on 6.
Thank you, Commissioner Moody. When road construction occurs, include sidewalks, bicycle lanes, path, wider shoulders, street trees, and other low-impact landscaping elements to complement the roadway.
Fine.
Okay. 7, provide well-designed crosswalks to increase motorist awareness and pedestrian safety. 8, maintain residential streets to promote safety and aesthetics. Okay,
Depends on what street you live.
9, accommodate increases in traffic volumes through road maintenance, intersection improvements, signalization improvements, upgrading the road network. Okay, so that's more road network, whereas before we talked about sidewalks, and before that is more of the right-of-way. Okay. 10, support and enhance public transportation service. All right. 11, improve the quality and quantity of bus shelters.
Does that fall under our purview? Or the city's purview?
Again, that is a goal. That if it's our intent to support bus shelters, then we have it within our action plan as a criteria that we could meet in the future. But we don't have to have a strategy to meet it today.
You know, in one of those old charrettes they did some years ago, there was a bus node proposal. I still think it's a very applicable thing.
Bus node.
Yeah, it's like, I can't remember what it was, maybe I'm using the wrong terminology, but essentially a big bus type spot, terminal, whatever you want to call it. Ms. Holman, wasn't there in those charrette drawings that the mock-ups they did, like a mass transit type node of some sorts?
Aren't we talking about that at 8 and Gratiot?
Yes,
That's what I thought too.
yes,
Chair,
yes.
I can confirm, yeah, it was 8 and Gratiot, which makes sense because that's where the DDOT and Smart Systems come together and they do the exchanges. So, yeah, and a lot of communities around us have those transit centers or transit nodes. So I think there's a lot of redevelopment potential at that intersection, in particular on the, what would it be, the northeast corner. So definitely something to look at being a big piece of this. I think would be an exciting part of the master plan update. I'd also add too, for 10 and 11, I would say combine them and add something about partnering with SMART, DDOT, and other last mile transit providers. So obviously we know our scooters are gone for now, at least the company that we had, but if we wanted scooters again, I'm not saying that we do, but or looking at bike share systems. You know, they have Mogo in Detroit and some of the other cities, so that's something we could look at. I know previously there was another Macomb County municipality that was looking into it, so it wouldn't connect with their current infrastructure in Detroit, so it would be part of a larger conversation with the city and the nonprofit that runs Mogo, but something to consider. That is one big thing when you're talking about transportation and transit is whether you're driving a car, taking a bus, you know, you're not typically, sometimes you are, but you're not always going to be able to pull right up to the front door. So what's going to get you that last quarter, half, or mile from where you park your car, you get off the bus to your final destination. So definitely something to keep in mind.
Is there any special zoning for EV charging stations? Out of curiosity, while we're talking about transportation.
That's a good question. So municipalities produce use regulations for EV charging stations, which really just like hinders the use and it makes it more difficult to establish these like needed charging stations. So what we recommend when we update zoning ordinances is to just make it easy and say that the charging station is allowed anywhere in any district, but it can't obstruct any right-of-way or parking spot.
Interesting. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Look, I don't know how you can tie that into this. I think
Yeah.
by making that is a flexible statement actually gives you the leeway. I mean, EVs are, they're coming slower than I think they thought they were gonna be coming, but slower than we all thought, but, they're coming, so.
Chair?
You don't think so?
Sorry. Commissioner Broll, I don't know all the details of it. We could potentially have Community Development Fellow Kraus join us at the next meeting, but he has enrolled the city in an EV Smart program, which from my understanding is designed to help cities roll out charging infrastructure and help educate the public on this coming transition that the country and world are going to be going through. So again, I don't have all the details because that's been part of one of his sustainability initiatives, but if you're interested in learning more, you can certainly reach out to him, or we can have him join us at the next meeting and share a little bit more about that, as well as some of the other great work that he's doing.
On that note, I had an idea of a gap, perhaps. So we have goals: neighborhood, community building, commercial, and transportation. What about sustainability? Green stormwater infrastructure. Some idea to try on for perhaps the next meeting.
I concur with that statement.
Chair, and I swear this is quick.
I'll take 12 candles.
Again, going back to the first page, I think a question too is, do we want to incorporate this in the master plan, or do we want this to be part of a separate sustainability plan? So just another item for consideration.
For which one, sorry?
To Planner Bradaszewski's last point about adding sustainability as an additional category into the master plan, just, again, some communities choose to incorporate it, some communities choose to make it a completely separate plan entirely. And I'll add too that, again, part of Mr. Krause's work is aligning the city with the Michigan Green Communities Challenge, which, similar to RRC, provides us with different goals and benchmarks to help the city continue to move towards a more sustainable future.
I'm probably going to speak heresy, but I don't think people are going to move to the city of Eastpointe because we might be green friendly. I would rather see it in a separate document. People are going to come here because we have a good plan. And whether or not EV is going to be a thing in my lifetime, I don't know. They say it's coming, but yet there's a whole lot of combustible engines being sold in cars. So I would rather see it as a separate document, and I just don't see people moving to Eastpointe because we might have moss growing on a roof that's doing something for oxygen, or having multiple electric charging stations with a grid that can't even support the power structure it has now. So I just don't think people are going to move here because of it.
So I think that you are partially true. I think we need to think of the younger generations who think of all that technology stuff and green stuff, and will be the people that you will need to entice.
But do you think it would, having multiple electric charging stations and whatever, do you think that is going to make a younger person say, oh my God, I have to live in Eastpointe because they have?
I don't think that, but I think it would definitely be something that is helpful if that is something that could be more important to them.
That's true, that will and can be a plus, because we are turning over to that, that's happening, so.
And it's those younger generations, and I'm just speaking of my niece and nephew who are, early 20s, and what's important to them and like what they look for.
Maybe they won't come here because there are no EV charging stations, but maybe they won't come because there aren't. Instead of saying like, we're going to come there because you have EV, I'm not coming there because you don't, right? Because there are other cities that will take a more aggressive stance on things like moss. I don't know about moss on the roof, but I mean, there are other communities that will take a more aggressive stance, and there are some people that will come to those communities because of that. As a matter of fact, we're, even talking about the mixed use, that appeals to a younger, it appeals to me too, but I think that appeals to a younger base. We're trying to make a more walkable, friendly community, and I think that appeals to a younger set too. So a lot of the things we're doing, actually, I think, do appeal to that type of person that Sheila's pointing to, some of the younger people.
So
in all lines.
But if it's in a separate document or in the master plan, it's kind of irrelevant. If there's a sustainability plan, it's going to be there. So it doesn't necessarily have to be within the master plan. I'm not saying that we shouldn't do things like that, but it doesn't necessarily have to be in the master plan.
But if your master plan is your planning goals, shouldn't it then be a part of it?
I mean, it could have a nod to it somewhere. I don't know.
Chair?
Yeah.
I guess to your earlier point, in my mind, a sustainability plan includes a number of different elements, but wouldn't you say part of that would be parks and public spaces?
True. So if you have an electric car, to my knowledge, there's one in the city right now, and that's at City Hall? Or there's the person who has the furnace store, or whatever it is, down from the police station. I think they have a charging station, but I'm assuming that's just for them. So if you have an electric car that needs to be charged, are you going to have one of these devices installed in your home to charge your own car? Or are you going to drive over to City Hall or wherever they're at, plug it in, walk home, and then walk back to your car when it's fully charged? I mean, it's...
Depends on your finances.
Yeah, to me, again, I'm not saying that we shouldn't be embracing this, but there's still some ambiguity to the whole thing.
There is, but the master plan is also for the future, and like I stated before, I think we have to consider those younger generations that are going to be taking over. I mean,
I concede to you, since you're so, what's the word I'm looking for? It's been a long night. No, not right. Your argument is so provocative.
I heard Commissioner Broll. Never mind, stop. I heard Commissioner Broll. We're done.
Your argument is so provocative, I defer.
So, yeah, Chair, if I may, I think this is a great conversation to think about what we want to include for the future vision of the city, and everything that we have within, the goals that we create. We're able to defend our projects, policy, partnerships by our goals. So if the city wanted to apply for some climate action, like project funding from the state of Michigan, one of the first criteria would be, well, is it in your master plan? And that would help our project move forward, or that would help us be more favorable to granting that funding. So that's kind of the idea around thinking, where do we want to go? Where do we want to expand? We might not have all the answers, but at least have that point within our plan.
Thank God I conceded to Commissioner Ulinski.
I also heard Ms. Brodaszewski say I was correct too. Booyah.
Chair?
Yes.
I have a practical example for that, actually. We had applied for a grant to provide additional amenities to one of our city parks. We missed out on that grant by 5 points because we did not include enough information about the sustainability elements that they wanted to see in the plan, and because we did not include enough information about ADA accessibility and universal design. So now we are revamping that, resubmitting it. Hopefully we will get the grant, but I think that is a practical example of the importance of having these kinds of things into the plan, because whether it's the DNR or another entity, they're looking for that.
Sure.
She's just cabbage patched.
She did. She did. She kept.
Apparently, Mr. McCain's not the only one on fire tonight.
Oh, facts. Okay.
Moving on.
Okay, Chair, where are we at? Review the potential change area map and future land use map. We also want to decide a city council and planning commission joint date. I don't know what you guys are thinking in terms of the time, but I know that we're missing some members and we want to revisit this conversation after staff tidies up the language per your remarks. So we would, in the next meeting, categorize or rank our objectives with the tidied up language. Perhaps at that meeting, we also want to discuss the potential change areas and the future land use map, but that is up to you. Or we can discuss it today.
I say we wait for when we have a full board. How would we feel about this?
I think that the people missing are important, have important ideas, and are always good for throwing in things that we miss.
I think I heard that you said I was right.
None of those words were in my thought or sentence. They were directed at the missing members tonight.
So shall we table item C?
We can table item C, but I won't be here in March.
It's fine. Opening day. So can I get a motion to table item C under unfinished business?
Motion to table item C under unfinished business to the March meeting.
Do we have motion? Do we have support?
Support.
We have motion and support. Secretary, please call the roll.
Ms. Julinski, yes. Ms. Moody?
Yes.
Mr. Broll?
Yes.
Chairman DeHunt?
Yes. Moving on to item D, discussion of the City Council Planning Commission joint meeting.
Chair, I have no information on this, but I'll defer to any city administration if we've made any more moves on this topic. If not, we can discuss again. Okay, thank you. I heard from the assistant city manager that it's up to city council to set the date.
Okay, so I guess we're going to table item D as well, pending a City Council decision.
Sounds good?
Can I get a motion, please?
Motion.
We have motion. Do we have support?
Support.
We have motion and support. Secretary, please call the roll.
Mr. Broll?
Yes.
Ms. Moody?
Yes.
Ms. Julinski, yes. Chairman DeHunt?
Yes. Moving on to the second hearing of the public. You have 3 minutes.
There. Gary Myron, Eastpointe resident. The 9 mile, I agree with the Kelly Road would be a lot better for a lot of different things. A couple years ago, City Council mentioned to do activities and outside eating, bars and stuff on Kelly Road. You know, redo the roads, and that was an awesome idea, and I think everybody had an awesome idea, and it just kind of like went away, but I think it should be brought back up again. Bike lanes, before, if we do get any, people should ride other bike lanes to see how not safe they are, especially on Masonic. I agree, I don't drive in the street because it's unsafe for one thing, traffic. For another thing, the roads are bad. I almost lost a bike a few times just driving in the side streets. The cracks, the gaps, the holes. So I was right on the sidewalk. I couldn't ride too much this year because I couldn't get out of my neighborhood. 9 Mile, Beechwood, Furwood, everything was blocked, so I didn't do much. Crosswalks, if you're gonna put a lot of crosswalks on, you might as well make the whole street crosswalks. Nobody uses them. I see them crosswalk here, they go the next driveway and they go by. Nobody uses them. San Francisco, you get a ticket for that. Here, it's an open game. People move here, a lot of it's for schools. Schools suck. Sorry for that, but there's nothing there. When I went, we had auto mechanics, we had small engine repair, we had welding, we had wood shop. I learned a lot from that. I didn't go to college, but I learned a lot from that, different things. My son went there, he had he made different things. He had, I can't think of the word right at the moment.
Did he make candles?
Yeah, no, he didn't make candles, but everything out of steel. He, ran in Bridgeport and a lathe, and he made, just different things. Well, he's been in the Navy for 13, 14 years now. All that helped him. Bikes, back to the bikes. There should be something somewhere saying you need lights for bikes. Driving in the dark, people have no lights. Everybody experienced that. You don't see them till you're almost on top of them. Especially in the morning, you're half asleep and going to work, it's raining, and somebody's riding a bike. They do that down 9 Mile down Warren. And that's not good. And a blinking light helps a lot in the back. Thank you, that's it.
A lot of comments to make. In regards to code enforcement, there's too many dilapidated houses. Back in 2007, code enforcement would give you 72 hours to come into compliance, or you'd incur a fine. Now, weeks go by, especially with rentals. The one next door to me, for over 3 years, the garage roof on that rental looked like it would cave in at any moment. And that same rental, the last rental inspection was done December 14th, 2023. There's nothing showing when a reinspection is going to be done, and there's a junk vehicle that continues to sit in the backyard. It has a flat tire, it's inoperable, and there's no tags. There's also a nuisance tenant that continues to violate the ordinances, and the negligent landlord fails to evict in spite of 4 non-payment evictions in a 1-year period. If you want to attract families, we've got to get rid of these negligent landlords because they're not conducting thorough background checks. They fail to do a thorough check to find there's prior repeated evictions and criminal histories, active warrants, so on and so forth. They're also clogging the court docket. Great Lakes Renaissance property has 276 cases, Garner Properties, 570 cases, Home Store, they have 82 cases. So if you want families to move in and stay, again, these negligent landlords have to go. Code enforcement has to return to that 72-hour compliance. And we had all these people crawling out of the woodwork wanting to come in and set up pot shops. Well, families aren't going to want their kids exposed to that. And you have renters who act like Cheech and Chong. You know, you want to smoke your, brains out until your lungs explode, knock yourself out. But don't forget, there's an anti-smoke nuisance ordinance. So shut your windows because your neighbors don't necessarily want to smell that. And Chairman, you had mentioned about elderly residents being afraid to report these violations. You're dead to the nails right. I have a lot of senior neighbors that are afraid to report, and we have horrible nuisance tenants on our block. They have no regard for human decency, common sense. The ordinances, the laws mean absolutely nothing to them. When the police show up to respond to the call, there's a saying, throw the rocks and you hide your hand. They lie like there's no tomorrow, and they've got no proof to support their lies. And this continues on.
30
this
seconds.
has to be reported to the building department. The building department needs to go after these negligent landlords, and say, do something about your nuisance tenant. In regards to walking and biking, it's just not safe. You can pick up Summerall a few blocks from here, walk it all the way down to Kelly. Not only do you have people speeding up and down all of those side streets, they're blowing through the stop signs like they don't even exist. There have been numerous times that if I wasn't paying attention, I would have got hit walking. So I know I'm out of time.
Sorry. Thank you. Don't see anyone else for the hearing of the public. We'll close the hearing of the public. Item A under training, I'd like to table for a full board. Do I have, we don't have a quorum at the moment. Smoke 'em if you got 'em. We'll wait for Mr. Broll. Where'd Mr. McCain go? Melting some wax?
Can we have Mary's 3 minutes since she left?
Don't think the ordinance allows for that. Were you melting wax? Or is she rolling on the floor back there? The idea is to table the training on complete streets because we have a new member, and we'll have Commissioner Lubeck with his insight, and we'll actually have Ms. Naylor with her building experience. I think all 3 people need to be added for that complete street training.
Chair?
Yes.
I just want to put out a teaser that I'm very excited to discuss this, and especially hear Commissioner Moody's comments.
I've watched the video about 4 or 5 times, so.
Love that.
It'll be interesting to have that discussion about complete streets, especially after the meeting on the 6th.
What does that mean? I mean, what do you mean by complete streets?
It's a process. It's a program or a vision for streets to make them more walkable, slower, bike lanes, additional crosswalks, slowing, what's the phrase, calming traffic?
Safer.
Yes, in theory, safer.
More opportunities to run over.
Chair,
Yes.
so the picture on the screen, actually, while we're waiting, why not, shows a picture of what a complete street looks like. And it's not a one-size-fits-all, not everything has to be incorporated to make the street complete, but it's more, complete streets more of a philosophy to use the road and repurpose it for all users and not just vehicle traffic. And I don't know about you guys, but sometimes I'm driving like, what's a good road? Like,
I can tell you,
like Rochester Road.
I can tell you of a complete street that looks very nice. Livernois, from 8 to 9 Mile.
Oh.
Ask me how many times I've seen somebody on that street using the bike lane. Twice. And it has little to no traffic.
So some streets are designed, I mean, we're all familiar with the streets on the left. And what I took away from the video is these streets are designed for speed. And I find myself over speeding because there's no, or speeding, I should say, because there's no design to alert me to slow down. And on the right, the design alerts me to slow down because of the repurposed roadway.
I guess street signs don't stop you? Traffic signs?
Yeah. Those are all indicators, but when there's, I'm sure you've experienced this, a long stretch when there's not a street light or a street sign in sight, what's the inclination to speed? So it's just about talking about how to redesign streets to make it prioritize safety and perhaps not speed.
It'll be a great discussion for next meeting.
Heard.
Can I get a motion to table the discussion or discussion on complete streets for a full board?
As Mr. Lubeck would say, so moved.
We have motion, do we have support?
Support.
We have motion and support. Secretary, please call the roll.
Mr. Broll?
Yes.
Ms. Moody?
Yes.
Chairman DeHunt?
Yes.
Ms. Julinski, yes.
Moving on to commissioners' comments, we shall start with Ms. Brzezowski.
Chair, I will provide an update of the projects at the next meeting when there's a fuller board. Okay. Perhaps we'll do a quarterly update, and we'll provide the status of where the projects are at in the pipeline right now that Planning Commission's already seen. But other than that, no. Thanks for having me. Have a good night.
Mr. McCain, the candle maker.
Thank you, Chair. Good evening, Commissioners. I'll try to keep it brief since I've taken up a lot of your time this evening, and I appreciate your patience. As you can see, I'm very passionate about these topics, so I'm excited to continue along this journey with you. We have a lot of exciting projects underway, some of which I've mentioned, so I won't go into any great detail about those. I just did want to uplift two news stories. I don't know if you all read or are subscribed to Crane's Detroit Business, but in the January 29th edition, they had an entire section on the future of downtowns in Michigan. So I haven't read all the articles, but I like what I've read so far. So just to give you an idea, as we're going through this master planning process to see what other communities are doing, are planning for, are implementing, I think it's a great case study. On the flip side, in terms of talking what we want to see, there was another article, I believe it was in an earlier edition of Crane's, that talked about communities that are pushing back against development. So again, thinking about what sorts of things do we not want to see in our community. So yeah, all good things to consider in this process and other processes, but yeah, if you're not subscribed to Crane's, definitely would encourage it because it's one of my favorite local papers. And with that, I hope you have a great day and a great rest of your February.
Ms. Holman, are you over there?
Not sure.
Seriously, I don't even see anything of you.
Whack-a-mole.
I believe Mr. McCain has used up administration's time for the next 4 or 5 meetings, so I have nothing.
No candle for you.
Whack-a-mole.
Nothing for you then? Mr. Albright.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I know that you were curious about the term knowledge worker, as was I, so I looked it up on Wikipedia, and it's defined as knowledge workers are workers whose main capital is knowledge. Examples include ICT professionals, physicians, pharmacists, architects, engineers, scientists, design thinkers, public accountants, lawyers, editors, and academics whose jobs it is to think for a living. And surprisingly, that term has been around since 1966.
Oh, wow.
It's not something that was just created here recently. It's been around a long time.
Richard Albright, Esquire, knowledge worker.
I can use that now. Thank you, Chair.
Got a new title, Ms. Albright.
We'll go down to Councilwoman Pashadnick.
And the business card.
I'd like to thank you for the maps. I think those were very helpful to look at and to, see where the various areas are, especially for me, being new to the Planning Commission. I do appreciate the colored maps and the coordinates. Very informative. Secondly, I'll be checking with City Council. I do know that that was one of the goals, was to do joint meetings, so I believe we are in the planning stages of, having a joint meeting, so I'll get back with you once we decide on having a joint meeting with planning. So that's all I have.
Thank you. Ms. Moody?
I don't have anything. Just say be blessed and have a good evening, everyone.
Usha?
Thank you, as always, for the insight and the knowledge. Mr. Albright, you said it's people who think, so does that definition only include those examples? Doesn't everybody think?
I think Wikipedia, you can expand that definition. You just need to go on their website and add other vocations or occupations.
Yeah, edit. Just pulling your chain. But no, I have nothing else. Thank you. Have a good night.
Mr. Broll?
Yeah, I don't have much. It was a good discussion tonight. thanks for the administration side of it, a lot of input from them too, so, yeah, no, have a good night.
Thank you. We get lost in the weeds on the minutia, but it's the minutia at the end of the day that causes the problems. Defining things, you gotta do it. So I encourage everybody, I'll play Gloria Swanson to all those little people in the TVs and the whatever. Anybody who is interested in the 9 Mile discussion, be it pro or con, you need to be in this room on the 6th at 7 p.m. Regardless of what side you take on it, you need to be in this room at 7 p.m. and state your case. Don't bitch about something if you're not willing to open your mouth. So, having said that, I'm done. Can I get a motion to close the meeting?
Motion to close the meeting.
We have motion. Do we have support?
Support.
We have motion support. Secretary, please call the roll.
Ms. Moody?
Yes.
Ms. Julinski, yes. Mr. Broll?
Yes.
Chairman DeHunt?
Yes.
Hey, everyone, can I collect your maps to use for next time? Save on printing?